Now in this chapter, we are going to deploy an AWS Direct Connect to a private virtual interface using VPN On Demand. So as a precursor to this, to sort of go over what this looks like, this is your customer premise with your router or switch with layer 3 capabilities. And it is connected to the Lumen network, the Lumen MPLS-based VPN. And it's connected to our PE. And what we're going to do is we're going to select a VRF or a virtual routing and forwarding table. And we're going to connect from that table to AWS through a Direct Connect Gateway using the Lumen NNI. So to do this, the first thing we are going to do is we are going to go into our AWS console. We're going to go to Direct Connect. We're going to go to Direct Connect Gateways, and we are going to create a Direct Connect Gateway. We're going to put a name in that we recognize. For our test. We are going to allow the default Amazon ASN or Autonomous System Number. You could change this. Keep in mind, if you do change it, notate that number for later purposes, but for now, you can just leave it as is. Wants me to type it in. I apologize. There we go. So our gateway has been created. Now we will go into Control Center. And we will go to Services. We will pick, whoops, sorry, Add Services. And we are going to select VPN On Demand connection. There's more you can see here about exactly what that is. Also, you can view the pricing, but we're going to do, we know what we want to do. We're going to go in and just start creating that connection. So we'll select our customer ID. This is a test bed environment, but typically when you log in, you would already have a customer ID from the services that you had purchased from Lumen. And then those services are broken out. They can be broken out into one or many billing account numbers. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to pick this billing account number that ends in 6GV. In your case, you are going to want to make sure that you have the proper billing account number that is associated with the MPLS VPN from which you wish to create a direct connect to AWS with. So this is going to be test AWS 7 gateway. I'm going to select, so you can see we've got all of our VRFs or virtual routing and forwarding tables here. Usually in the case of most customers, there would just be one or there might be several. I'm just going to select one here. If you didn't know which VRF or virtual routing and forwarding table was yours that you needed to select, you could interrogate the contents of the routing table by clicking on this View Details link. I'm not going to do that here so it doesn't slow our demonstration down. The other thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go in and you're going to want to copy your account ID so that that can be placed into the AWS account ID. And then you're going to select your on-ramp. Now I've created my connectivity for Northern California or US West 1. So I'm going to stick with that type of connectivity and pick our 100 gig connection in Los Angeles. I'm going to click continue and I'm going to be presented with two options here. One is monthly bandwidth, it's billed monthly or hourly. If you're in an iTential shop or infrastructure as code shop where you are creating and tearing down workloads or basically an environment for your workload on the fly, this may be more economical. However, if you're in a production environment and this is a permanent part of your hybrid layout, then you would pick just monthly and set it and forget it. In this case, I'm going to pick 50 megs. You'll notice that because we were on that 100 gig NNI or network to network interface, I can go all the way up to 25 gigs for AWS. Now, the next thing is a routing policy. And what that is that, let's go back to our diagram here. Keep in mind that you as a customer are not peering directly with AWS for this direct connect. Lumen is peering on your behalf to AWS, and Lumen is presenting the routes that you tell Lumen to present to AWS. So we're giving you sort of a switch or a couple buttons to press so you can decide what you want to announce from this environment. Keep in mind, this is just one connection from a data center into the Lumen MPLS network, but this could be many, many, many locations for a large MPLS network. And so you can decide how much of those routes or which of those routes you want advertised into the AWS environment. So let's go back to Control Center and go to the routing policy side of things here under additional settings. And you can see the AS number or the autonomous system number selected is 64512. That's the default used for AWS. If you changed it when you created your Direct Connect Gateway, you would want to change it here. I'm going to leave this alone because I didn't change it. Now, the next thing to keep in mind is you can create multiple direct connects from your MPLS-based VPN to AWS using this technology. So you could decide whether you want that to be a primary or a backup connection. The idea is if you want all of your traffic to go to the West Coast region like I'm creating, I would pick West as a primary, and then when I later created East, I'd make that a backup. This just sets preferencing in our MPLS network in regards to which connection is preferred from the MPLS network going towards AWS. And then additionally here, we have 3 different routing options. The first option allows you to just announce only the RFC 1918 aggregate space, and that will limit your routing table size. This is a really good fit for AWS and Google due to their prefix limits, especially AWS that has a prefix limit of 100 prefixes before it tears the BGP session down. There are more granular options. If you want to get very granular, this third option is basically deny everything unless I spell it out on this defined aggregates bar like that. Or I could come back up here and say, allow everything to go through except what I've added a BGP community string to and say, don't allow this, right? So there's all kinds of options here. We're going to take the easy button and stick with this aggregate because that fits AWS the best. But keep in mind, you've got these other options. And then finally, you can decide whether you want to announce a default route towards AWS from the MPLS network or not. So we're going to continue on from there, and we're going to be presented with the service details that we configured, not only our billing information, but also what provider we're going to, what on-ramp we're going to them from, which of our virtual routing and forwarding tables is being used, what our billing method is, how much we're being charged for it, and how much bandwidth. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to submit this order so I can get that direct connect started. And this is actually creating the VPN on-demand connection towards AWS from the Lumen NNI that we selected. So now we're going to see the progress of this order. We'll watch it fill in through design, configuration, activation, and completion. As it fills in, a few things we should talk about are connector attributes. These are what are important to you when you configure or accept the AWS Direct Connect. So you'll notice right now we're in a state of design. What does that mean? That means that we are picking these attributes. So there's some automation going on in the background. Now we just see they got filled in. So again, as we talked about, the peering is not between your network from your premise to AWS, it's from the Lumen network to AWS. So This network is represented by Autonomous System 3549. This network is represented by Autonomous System 64512. So when we go back here, we'll see that the Lumen ASN is 3549. Don't expect you to memorize that. We'll see the Cloud ASN. We will also eventually see a connection ID here, which most people know in AWS is a DXCon. We also now have a BGP authentication key that we can use to secure our BGP routing. And we also have the Lumen router IP and the cloud router IP assigned. And that's important for when we go in and we configure our BGP peering relationship. So we're in the process of waiting for this to complete. Okay, our connection has been completed, and you can see now we actually have what's called a DXCon or a Direct Connect connection ID. And we'll note here that it ends in K4CQ. So we'll kind of commit that to memory. We'll go into our Direct Connect. We're actually going to go to the connections themselves. There we go. We have our K4CQ. So we're going to go ahead and accept that Direct Connect. And it's in a state of pending. It will move to a state of available when it's ready. But in the meantime, we'll go ahead and we'll create our private virtual interface. So we're going to pick a private here for the VIF type or the virtual interface type. We're going to pick a name that we recognize. In my case, I'm going to call this test VIF7 Direct Connect Gateway. This will be filled in for us, the connection side of things. And then we'll decide if it's our AWS account that we're using or another in the case of, say, a third party was providing us connectivity to their own environment through a certain VIF. And then we'll go to the gateway type and we will select Direct Connect Gateway. And we'll see this Direct Connect Gateway that we created. Then we go down to the bottom here and it's asking us for the BGP ASN of our on-premise router for the new virtual private interface. Remember from earlier, because Lumen is doing the peering on our behalf, we're going to use the Lumen ASN, which is this 3549. So we're going to go back to the console, and we're going to type in 3549, but we're not going to stop there. We're going to move on into additional settings, and we're going to put in our router IPs. So here it's going to ask for the router IP. That is going to be the Lumen router IP. So we'll go back to Control Center, and we will get the Lumen router IP because that's acting as our customer premise in this configuration. Then it's asking for the Amazon router IP address that we assigned for this virtual interface. So we're going to go back over here and we're going to select the cloud provider router IP. Paste that in. And then lastly, we're going to get our BGP authentication key so that our routing is protected. Then we're going to go ahead and create that virtual interface. So it came back here, it said the specified connection ID is not available. What that means is that we are still waiting on the direct connect to become available. So we'll give it a few more minutes here. And this is the direct connect within AWS, not the connection from Lumen. This is just within AWS. We're waiting for that direct connect to come available. So we'll give it a few more minutes here and try again. All right, it's been about 3 minutes. Let's go ahead and try again. Okay, so we have our virtual interface created, and we have our DXCon here. And we're going to go into that virtual interface. And we're going to wait on our BGP status to come up. So before we were held back by our direct connect not being completed. So it takes a while for the direct connect to come to an available state. And once it's available, then you can go ahead and create your virtual interface like I did. I just kind of jumped the gun here. So now we are awaiting our private VIF to come up, and we shall see the state become available, and the BGP status will bounce and come up and say that it's available also. Meanwhile, we'll wait. Okay, so we see that our state of our virtual interface is available. We still need to wait for our BGP to come up. That could take a couple minutes here. Okay, so our BGP status is up, and now you'll notice the state itself is available for this direct connect. We have now started to exchange routes between the two networks. In our next chapter, we'll show how to disconnect this direct connect gateway based connection across the VPN.